Welcome back to this SPK and Associates vlog. My name is Michael Roberts. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing here at SPK and Associates. Today we're talking about the single biggest lever for on-time, on-budget software, and that's having really good, clear requirements. With me is our VP of Engineering, Carlos Almeida. Carlos, great to have you. Feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, thanks, Michael. Yes, I'm Carlos Almeida. I'm Engineering VP at SPK and Associates. Have years and years of experience with very large projects in software development, in infrastructure, DevOps, regulated and unregulated industries. So love to talk about this topic. It's near and dear to me.
Yeah, I immediately when we talked about this topic, Carlos, I was like, you have some really good experience here. And when I say experience, I mean you've experienced pain. So let's start with that pain. So why do you think that so many software projects struggle due to poor requirements? And what are the key characteristics of maybe some well-written requirements?
So, it's interesting when you look at why so many software projects run into trouble, not just software, but hardware, et cetera. It often comes back to requirements or lack of. If you have them, a lot of time they're either vague or incomplete or written in a way that means different things to different people. And when you start with a project on that kind of shaky foundation, you end up with missed expectations, endless rework, and frustrated teams. So I think part of the problem is that writing good requirements is kind of hard. It's both an art and a science. You need to understand the business context, the user needs, and the technical constraints, and then express it in a way that's unambiguous and testable. That's not a skill set that most organizations formally train people in. For me, the best requirements always share a few key characteristics. Clarity is one. Everyone from the developer to the tester to the business stakeholder should read it and interpret it the same way. Second, traceability. You can connect each requirement back to a business objective or regulatory need. So nothing is just because we felt like it. Testability. You should be able to say, yes, I can measure whether this requirement has been met or not. And then prioritization, because not all requirements are created equal. So in knowing which ones are critical versus what's nice to have, that's important. So when teams get these fundamentals right, everything else downstream, design, testing, compliance, just becomes a lot smoother. It's like you're building a house. If you invest the time in getting the blueprint right, you don't have to keep knocking down walls later.
Yeah, definitely don't want to knock down walls. That's a bad start to building a house, is knocking down walls. So, given those attributes, Carlos, can you walk us through maybe some best practices around gathering and documenting requirements, especially in cross-functional teams or even highly regulated environments?
Absolutely. So I think gathering and documenting requirements is really more like a team sport, especially in regulated environments like med device or aerospace. You've got engineering, you've got QA, you got regulatory and marketing. They're often all sitting at the same table. So one of the best practices I've seen is to start with good structured conversations. Instead of jumping right into documentations, things like workshops or user story mappings, or even a simple day in the life walkthrough can help you uncover really what people need versus what they assume. The second thing is using a shared language. In regulated industries, engineers might say one thing, regulatory teams may say another thing, and the business folks may say something else. And if you don't normalize that language, you all end up with conflicting interpretations. That's why frameworks that use use cases or user stories or models I like in particular, because they really give a good common way to express the requirement. Then comes the documentation discipline. It's not just about writing things down. There's actually a structured way to write the requirement so it's clear. So take a moment to, what I think makes a good requirement. So a well-written requirement usually starts with something very simple, the classic the system shall structure, right? Forcing you to be specific, measurable, measurable, and unambiguous. A solid requirement has three parts: the subject, who or what is performing the action, usually the system shall, something, defined subsystem, shall, the subject, right? The action is the shall part. For examples, shall record, shall display, shall calculate. The word shall makes it mandatory, not optional. And then there's an object or condition, like what the system is acting upon or what the condition is. Like the system shall record the user's temperature in Celsius within 2 decimal places. Very clear, very specific. Now, a lot of weak requirements leave those things out. They'll say something like, the system shall be user friendly. Well, what does that mean? You can't test it. Maybe a stronger version might be, the system shall allow a new user to complete registration in less than 3 minutes without assistance. That's a much more clear, measurable, and testable requirement.
I love that. And breaking down the complexity is, part of the game when writing those requirements. So I love the example there. So I want to twist it a little bit. I want to talk about how testing early can actually help reduce some of that rework and some of that excess. So what role does early validation play in reducing that rework and hoping that you can keep projects on track and within budget?
Well, early validation is huge. I'd say it's probably the single biggest thing you can do to reduce rework and keep a project on schedule. The reason is pretty simple. The earlier you catch a misunderstanding, the cheaper it is to fix. I use this model with software engineering and software bugs, i.e., catch it in development, pretty cheap. Catch it in QA, more expensive. Customer catches it in your release project, really expensive, right? So it translates to requirements as well. So spend more time in your workshop or team meetings honing those requirements so ambiguity doesn't slip by QA, potentially hit your customer. What early validation does is create those quick feedback loops. Before you've sunk a lot of time and money into building the wrong thing, that can look like reviewing prototypes with end users, walking regulators through your traceability matrix, or just simply reading the requirements back to your stakeholders in plain language and asking, is this what you meant? And especially in regulated environments, early validation isn't just a nice to have, it's proof. It shows auditors and oversight bodies that you didn't just throw requirements over the wall. You verified alignment at each stage. So for me, early validation is about three things: protecting the budget, protecting the schedule, and building trust. Trust between the business and the engineering team, trust with external stakeholders. When you get that right, the whole project just moves more smoothly.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I love that, Carlos. Thank you for sharing a lot of that knowledge and that experience on getting better requirements, clearer requirements. So
Thank
if
you,
you
Michael.
uh, if you found this information useful, please like and subscribe to the SPK and Associates YouTube channel, where we're sharing decades of product and software experience. So thank you, Carlos,
Back at you.
and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.